we're very privileged today that our guest speaker, who's involved in sustainable and climate-related careers, Sarah Woolley, is an educator in a very broad and rich sense of the term. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself in your own words?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Sarah Woolley, and I am the General Secretary of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union, which is a trade union representing workers in the food industry. So we've got members in Greggs, Warburton's, Aunt Bessie's, Fox's Biscuits, all the really healthy stuff, you know, that's really good for you to eat. We've got members that produce that. And it's also, so our industry is also kind of one of the key players in emissions because of the production and the delivery and how things are made. So we kind of, as an aside to the day-to-day work we do as a trade union, we've got a very big focus on environmental issues and climate change and how we can contribute to our industry to reduce their emissions.
Okay, that's a terrific introduction. Thank you. I just wanted to, I often like to ask our guest speakers as an opening, Sarah, what role does the living world, the natural world, play in your day-to-day life? How do you connect with it?
So I was trying to think about this before coming on the call, and in my pre-lockdown, before I'm living out of my little back garden working, I spend a lot of my time driving, you know, which I know is terrible for the environment, but it's a way to get from A to B when you're covering the whole of the country. So when I'm at home and I'm not working, I try to do a lot of walking. You know, I'm very lucky that I live near a canal, a river, a couple of lakes, some farmland. So I try to walk and kind of take in the scenery. I've tried to dabble during lockdown in growing my own fruit and vegetables. I'm not an expert at it. We've had some failures, but I think it's important to kind of look at how we can be more sustainable ourselves, as well as, you know, preaching to the employers that we work with, and just any opportunity that I can to be in the countryside or the seaside. I like the seaside as well, and just, you know, having that time where you're on your own, just walking, taking in the environment and the trees and the plants and the animals around you, I think it's important. It also helps you kind of get away from the day-to-day job as well.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. Thank you. So suppose how taking a broader picture, how you've already started to answer in a way how the issues of climate change and perhaps of climate justice are relevant to you as the General Secretary of an important trade union, and it may even now in 2020 in the kind of Anthropocene, it might not immediately be something that people put together, kind of the trade union movement and the need to kind of decarbonize and green our way of living. So could you tell us how you came to put these two together? How did that confluence come about?
So I'll be honest, prior to 2017, I kind of just floated through. I've done my recycling, I do my walks, I try and be green in myself, but much further than that, I wasn't as active and as involved as I probably should have been. And we moved a motion at the Trade Union Congress, which is a conference once a year that the TUC, which is Trade Union Congress, holds. That's like an umbrella organisation for a number of trade unions. We affiliate to it, and then they pass motions, and we work to those motions, as well as our own. And we put a motion to them around climate change, calling for things like public ownership for energy and having a just transition to a green economy. And there was an awful lot to the motion, and for the first time in like forever, all the unions voted for it, which was quite historic because there's some trade unions that look after people in the energy sector that have members that take part in fracking because that's the job that they do. So sometimes there's a bit of conflict, but we all came together and said, yep, this is the direction we're going to. And after moving that motion, it kind of seemed natural then for me to take on the role in the union, looking at the environmental work we do, or at that point didn't do enough of, and building on it. And it's kind of just gone from there. I've kind of just, 2017 being thrown in at the deep end, and now I get to come and meet people like you and have conversations like this, and I feel like I know a bit more of what I'm talking about rather than back then when I didn't. But we've kind of built links with all kinds of different organisations as well to get more of a clear understanding of what direction we should be travelling in, and we've done a big piece of work in engaging our members on why climate change is important, and especially in our industry with such big emissions, that at some point things are going to change, and we want to be at the forefront of those changes so that our members don't end up, being the ones that have the terms and conditions stripped, or the pay reduced because companies are being fined, for example.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if I answered the question then. I think I waffled on.
No, it's very interesting to hear kind of people's different entry points into this as an issue. I'm conscious that I don't want to kind of take people's understanding for granted. So I think it would perhaps be helpful to step back, and if you could explain briefly in your own words what a trade union is, even it kind of what the function of a trade union is. And I wondered if you could maybe answer that by describing your own path, your kind of trajectory after being a school leaver, for example.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So when I left school at 18, I had a Saturday job at Greggs. I started off at Baker's Oven, but we became Greggs. And somebody had said, when I started, do you want to join our trade union? And I didn't really know a lot about it, but my mum and my dad had said to me, when you start working, there's two things you need to do: join the pension scheme, join the trade union. So I kind of did it and just like paid my money and didn't really take any notes for a while. And we went over to Greggs and I had a meeting with the branch secretary, who's kind of I suppose in business terms, it's kind of the local manager of the trade union branch, came and visited the shop, and we were having a chat. And so basically the trade union at Greggs, which would pretty much mirror everywhere else, negotiates terms and conditions, so holidays, premium payments on bank holidays and things like that, negotiates pay. So every year at Greggs we have a big committee that gets together and negotiates with the company around whether we have pay rises and how much that may be. We're currently going through consultations with Greggs around potential job losses, so that the trade union is doing those consultations rather than them having to speak to 25,000 people that work for Greggs. We also sit in, so if you are at work and you have an issue, that there's something that you're not happy with, and you raise it in a formal manner, it's called a grievance, and that there's a process that you follow. So we would sit in and represent you in a grievance procedure. And equally, if you were to get yourself into a spot of bother at work and had to have an investigation or a disciplinary meeting, we would represent you in that process as well. So that's kind of the day-to-day stuff that the trade union do. But we also do things like we campaign on issues. So we've currently got campaigns on around the environment and having green reps in workplaces. One around, we've got a Cool It campaign around making sure that our bakeries are not too hot to work in. And members, more importantly, the members are the ones that drive those campaigns and those policies that we have, because it's them that put motions to our conference that dictate what we go forward. And then we have other things like we have a learning services, so we've got a pretty good education platform that we use, that I've utilised throughout my career so far with the trade union that does different levels of qualifications. And some unions like ours have credit unions that you can save with as well. So there's kind of a lot of things that we do as a trade union. It's a big umbrella. I think most people know us for, you know, if you get into trouble, they're the people that come in and sit with you, or if there's an issue at site, they're the people that help you go out on strike. But there's much more of it than that.
Yeah, no, that's a really valuable overview, and hopefully also expanding people's understanding of what a trade union does. Can pick up what you said about the education. So, could you say a little bit about how, in a way, you've continued your education through your membership and involvement with a trade union post
Yeah,
school?
go on, sorry.
No, that was just a faulty connection. Sorry.
All right, sorry. So yeah, I finished school. I did my GCSEs. I then went into and did my A levels, my AS and A levels. I fell pregnant midway through my A level year and had a son. And thought there's no way that I could go to university and continue my education. Kind of parked it because I got a little boy and yeah, too many plates to juggle. When I became a rep with our union, they sent me on a shop stewards course, so they trained me to be able to go and sit in and represent people, because that's important to know, that the reps that are there aren't just random people. They get trained so that they can properly represent you. And I thought, wow, I couldn't believe how much I'd missed education, which sounds really silly, but I did. I missed that kind of learning and developing myself. So I then started looking at what else I could do outside the formal courses. And I've done all sorts over the years. I've done equality and diversity courses, counselling courses. I've done a leadership and management at a level 4, I think it is, level of qualification. I still can't quite get my head around the different levels and what they actually mean. But I've done all sorts. And in fact, when I stood for General Secretary and I took my file with me of all the different courses and qualifications that I gained over the last 5 years, say, it was like that thick with just certificates of different things. Because, you know, I do truly believe in education and continually developing yourself, you know, as an adult and everything else. And for lots of our members, particularly, we look after people that are very low paid. They don't need to have degrees to do what they do. So a lot of our members left school at 16 with little or no qualifications. And this just provides, the trade union provides them with a route to still continue to develop themselves in a way that's not like school, but gets them the qualifications that they need to be able to, you know, progress and move on. You still on mute, Sam.
Thank you. It's tremendous to hear that perspective on education. Is there, so kind of pulling some of these strands together, I believe that Kim would quite like to ask you a question, but I'm intrigued to know, with the experience and hindsight and training that you have now, addressing 16, 17, 18-year-olds today who care about lots of the issues that you've touched upon, what is most important for you to share with them? How can they put these into practice?
I think the main thing is not to become disheartened. You know, there's still a lot of people that don't really understand the impact of climate change. You know, why should I be bothered about what's happening at the other side of the world because I put my recycling out every week, kind of thing, that kind of attitude. And it's very easy to become disheartened if you're talking to people that aren't responding. So don't, because there are so many people, and you only have to look at like the school climate strikes and the support that they've had over the last 12, 18 months, that kind of engagement is growing. People are scared of change. but you guys are the people that are creating that change. You are setting the foundations for the future. You're developing the future for yourselves, and more importantly for the generations that follow you. So, you know, if you're having a particularly tough day and somebody's saying to you, you know, it's not going to make a difference, you know, you're just one person, just believe that you are there to be the giants that the people that follow you stand on the shoulders of, because it is tough, and change is tough. But we do need change if we're going to have a world that's sustainable, that's still here, that's still inhabitable in, you know, 10, 15 years. We need to come together, and we need to be standing and saying we need to make changes, and you guys are at the forefront of that. You know, it's okay, me as a 33-year-old general secretary, I'm old now, you know, I'm not one of the next generation of people to come through and make those changes. But yeah, it's just keep going, because people are on board, and people will stand with you.
I suppose I really, so I know that Kim did have a question, but I've got an immediate question from that, which is, if 2017 was a watershed in terms of trade union, certainly in the UK, commitment to the climate justice issue, what do you have any kind of practical top tips of communication skills and convincing people?
I think, you know, reach out, start with your own group, in your own peers, and talk to them. But if there's a trades council, or if there's an event, so thinking back to the kind of the climate strikes, the biggest thing that we found with those as a trade union was, when we turned up to them, young people were like, oh, we didn't think we'd have the support, we didn't think you'd come. Utilize those links, you know. So if any of you here today are thinking, we'd want to do something, do you think we could get the Bakers Union involved? Contact me and we'll do what we can. You know, these meetings are as important about getting change and getting people engaged as any other meeting. And we can provide those links and those local links to get people involved. But I think it's just, you know, talk to as many people as you can about it. Start with your peers, get them on board, and then widen that out. You know, talk to your parents, your neighbours, making sure that you're talking to people. And it's just about getting it into regular conversation, isn't it? You know, climate change. People talk about David Attenborough on the BBC, but not really much further than that. And it's about getting those conversations. It's more about recycling. It's about the actions and the decisions that you make. I've had a couple of private questions. Do you want me to answer those?
Yes, no, please do.
So one is, what are other aims that trade unions have in regards to young people who leave school with little or no qualifications? So I think for us, it's about giving you the opportunities to develop yourself. It's not about us dictating to you that you must do a maths course or you must do an English course. It's about giving you the options to say, actually, I quite fancy doing that, and us giving you the ability to do that. I'm not sure whether that answers the question, but and with doing that, hopefully, you know, if you start off with a Saturday job that you really hate, we can give you the platform then to move on to do something else, rather than you being stuck doing that job that you don't like because you don't feel that you've got the qualifications to do anything else. There's another one that says, how do you think young people can help tackle climate change? And do you agree that the effects of, in terms of the environment, are irreversible? So how do I think young people can help tackle climate change? I think young people are doing it already. I've mentioned the climate strikes. They're getting people talking about it. They're engaging people. You only have to look at Greta and the amazing kind of snowball effect that she's had with getting people talking and engaging young people. So I think young people are already tackling climate change and getting other people on board. And do you agree that the effects in terms of the environment are irreversible? I think if we don't make changes now, you know, then yes, there will be. We're not going to be able to turn things around. I think I've tried to look at silver linings through COVID, and one of the massive silver linings is we have got the opportunity to put our economy back in a better, greener, more sustainable way coming out of this. And if ever there was a time to do it, now is the time to demand better, you know, and demand difference and change. I think those are the only ones.
Okay, thank you. Kim, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was really interested, Sarah, in whether you've got any sort of specific examples of initiatives that organisations or members of, say, trade union have done that you could point to, kind of the positive stuff.
So in terms of our own union, we've done a big piece of work with Greg's. I think it helps that I used to work for them, so I can kind of contact people that I know around training. So we've done some work around training the health and safety reps to be more environmentally aware. And they've done different kind of courses, if you like, different sessions, one on around what a carbon footprint is, because, you know, not everybody knows what that means, how it's worked out, let alone how you can reduce it. And if you don't know those kind of fundamentals, how can you then plan to make a difference at work? We've done a bit about that, a bit around energy, water and waste, and just, so that's kind of the biggest piece of work we've done. But then other companies have done some things around Premier Foods, that does Mr. Kipling's cakes. We did some work with them around planting trees. So they've kind of literally planted trees all the way around the factory, which helps with the noise for the houses that are around it, but also helps, you know, kind of offset some of the emissions that are out there. And Jackson's in Hull's done something similar with Hull Council. And then other companies, we're kind of on different levels with them, but Robert's Bakery, they've changed their bread packaging so that it is actually recyclable now, which is fantastic because it's never been. Warburton's are looking at using heat from the ovens, and Bess's have put in a wind turbine and recycles its own energy that way. So there's all kinds of things out there. We're just trying now as a union to collate all those and say, look, this is a gold star, this is where we want you all to be. So we raise the industry up rather than some up here and some down there. But yeah, there's all kinds, and that's just in our industry, you know, other trade unions like PCS that look after the public communication service union that represents civil servants, and UCU, the University and College Union, they've done some amazing things as well in their own sectors around climate change and getting people engaged.
That's really exciting. Can I ask a follow-up question? That so for young people today, do you think that kind of knowing about climate change and sustainability and how it applies to, I don't know, the world of sort of, well, the things that we do and consume, does it help them get a job? Will it actually help them, do you think, in their career? Is this time well spent?
I think, do you know what? I think going forward, it's going to, because companies and businesses, as well as trade unions, they are being more climate aware, more environmentally aware. And I think if a young person can go to an employer and say, I'm better than everybody else applying for this job because I've got this qualification, or I've got this interest, or I've got this experience around environment and climate change, and I can come into there and give you so many different ideas about how you can be cleaner and greener. I think, you know, it really is a positive for young people. It really is. I mean, my partner's a builder, and he was saying if he could do his time again, and if he was a young person now, being able to be in the kind of green side of construction and going and saying, look, we want to build these eco-friendly houses. He said, you'd be in a job for life now, coming out of COVID and looking at what's going forward. Whereas on the other hand, he's now struggling because everybody's wanting eco-friendly buildings, you know. So yeah, there's massive opportunities going forward. And you know, that's the way we want it to be. We want it to be greener. There's a great organisation called Greener Jobs Alliance, and they work with trade unions and other organisations to put on some free kind of online training courses. We've set up a trade unions clean air network as well, which is attached to that website. and there's all sorts of things on there that would be really useful information if anybody wants to have a look.